like to give everybody out there listening a very warm White Cat welcome, because you're tuned in to the White Cat Outdoors podcast. Okay, you guys, welcome to the very first ever episode of the White Cat Outdoors podcast. And we just want to thank all you guys that are tuning in, obviously, for the very first time. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We don't know how you heard about us. You can look us up on Instagram at White Cat Outdoors. Luke's going to have our YouTube channel up at White Cat Outdoors also. We're going to have the Facebook up also at White Cat Outdoors. And before we get into our content today, we're just going to talk a little bit about, Nick's got a good story for us this morning. Me and Tom just been laying down deer left and right. Tom has killed 4 deer now? 4 deer in 2 different states, in New York and PA. I have killed 2 deer in New York and PA, and Nick hasn't killed anything yet this year. And just this morning, he finally wanted to get in on the action. So, Nick, why don't you tell us about what you had going on this morning?
How's it going, guys? As Frank said, I'm Nick, and I got my first deer of the season. It's been a slow season this year. I decided to take out my favorite weapon of choice. Just kidding. It's GMC Sierra, on our way to do our first podcast ever, and I had a deer jump out of the weeds and hit my truck. Couldn't do anything about it. We took care of it, called the state police. But yeah, unfortunate way to happen, but I did get my first deer, if you'll call it that.
And you gave us a good story.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, I was sleeping in the back seat of the truck, so that was how I woke up this morning. So
He just wanted to make sure you were awake for the podcast. Yeah, he didn't want you all drowsy when you got here.
If I lack that energy quality, we can thank Nick for that this morning. Thank you.
So we're a little bit delayed, but no difference to you guys. But so that was how my hunting season's gone so far. It's not over yet, but I did get my deer in 2020. Or 2019, my bad.
There you go.
But so like I said, I'm Nick. We'll go around the table here and just kind of introduce ourselves. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'll pass it around clockwise here and go about who we are.
Luke Soboleski here. I'm just going to be a frequent guest on the podcast here. I'm one of the co-owners with the guys here, but I'm more geared towards the fishing side of things. Like Frank mentioned earlier, we're going to get a YouTube channel started up. I'll be mainly in charge of that, filming some fishing trips and go out on some hunts with the other guys here and film them and just kind of get things started.
What's going on, guys? You met me in the intro. My name is Frank Myers, but everyone calls me White. You'll learn more about that later on. Me and Tom are both kind of more well-rounded, if you will, with fishing, hunting, and trapping. Still not as deep into the fishing as Luke is. I do a lot of fishing, mostly hard water fishing. I don't do a whole lot of open water fishing anymore. I don't really have a whole lot of time for it. But
what he's trying to say is that he's not as good as I am at fishing.
I don't know if we're saying that, but we can throw down whenever you want. We'll talk about it.
We'll have to host a White Cat Outdoors fishing tournament sometime.
Check YouTube for that. Stay tuned. It might be a little bit, but we'll get there. So I am all about archery is my big thing. I'm also a guide up in Alaska, so hunting is definitely my forte over fishing. And obviously love trapping. Anything that'll get me outside any time of year, whether it's summer, winter, fall, I'm always outside doing something, whether it's hunting or trapping or fishing. So, Tommy, why don't you give us a rundown on you? Who is Tom?
Hey guys, I'm Tom Soboleski, and big time deer hunter. Archery is definitely my bread and butter, but anything to get me out there, if I got a muzzleloader, rifle, anything, it's all great. Not only am I a hunter, trapping, raccoons, beavers, I got that down pretty well. When it comes to fox and coyotes, I love doing it, but I'm striking out
Still trying to figure that one out.
I don't have a professional mentor like Frank does.
He's
I'm kind of winging it, trying to figure it out on my own. But I had a couple traps get set off, just haven't totally sealed the deal yet. I do a little bit of fishing. Most of my fishing's in streams for steelhead. I do a lot of hard water fishing. My grandpa, he's a pretty big walleye fisherman, so we go out on this boat pretty frequently throughout the summer and troll walleye on Lake Erie. So
As you'll find out about our YouTube channel, we recently acquired a 20-foot boat for the big water that the White Cat team will be using, so you'll have to stay tuned for those videos.
And then last but not least, I'm Nick. Like you said, I've hit my first deer for the year. I'm also one of the co-hosts with Frank and Tom. So why don't let's get kicked off with Frank and Tom. They're going to tell us how White Cat Outdoors got started.
It's a really good story, actually. So
I really think you guys are going to like it.
it was 2015, and it was in the middle of archery season, I think. It might have been just the beginning of archery.
Pre-rut, we'll call it.
We'll call it pre-rut. So Tom and I, we're out in the barn, getting ready to go out for the evening hunt, and we're going right back behind Tom's house. We're going to sit in the ground blind right on the edge of Tom's food plot. And we're about to walk out back, and Tom's like, let's get a quick video here. And, Tom, I'm sure you could figure out where the cat comes from, Tommy the cat, just a clever little thing. And my nickname my whole life has always been Whitey, so that's where we got the white for White Cat. So that's where the name comes from in White Cat.
It's just a combination of Whitey and Tommy the cat, so
Thanks for the clarification, T. We appreciate it.
just so everyone knows.
Yeah, everybody's.
I think
no
everyone was
confusion
lagging
now.
behind
that
for a
was very
minute.
confusing.
I'm glad you brought us up to speed.
Just wanted to clear the air, guys.
So we're about to walk out, and Tom's like, let's take a quick video. Let's really get this White Cat thing going. So I pull my phone out, my first ever smartphone, and take a quick video of Tom saying...
High quality pictures and videos out of this thing, guys.
Yeah, it was real high quality. I don't think we have the video anymore.
I was
was
just
just about-
if these videos exist somewhere, because that will also be leaked.
Well, I'll do my best to find it. I don't know if we can, but we'll work on that.
If we can't, we'll reenact it.
I could definitely do
You
a
could
reenactment.
do a reenactment. Tom, you in for a reenactment?
Absolutely.
And I actually do remember the date now, because I remember you saying in the video it was October 16th, and you started by saying it's October 16th, and you looked like an idiot, but it was a great video. So he's like saying, this is me and Frank from White Cat Outdoors. This is literally the first time we had ever said White Cat Outdoors out loud. So we walk out back and go sit down in the ground blind and don't have anything going on first thing as soon as we get out there. So we're just sitting there talking, quietly, obviously, and just waiting for something to happen. And Tom decides, let's get the phone back out and take another quick video. And so, Tom, why don't you take over here, T?
I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here. If you want to attract big deer, you got to sound like big deer. So this little trick I had Frank record, I reached into my bag and pulled out a bag of acorns. Now what you're going to want to do, and what I did to call this big buck in,
Which he did call this big buck.
he came in not 5 minutes after. You're going to want to take a couple acorns, put them in your mouth, and crunch on them. Mimic like a big dominant buck eating acorns.
You really got to focus on that big buck energy, because you don't want to be a little buck chewing on acorns.
So, and then you're going to want to, it's going to taste really bad. Acorns are terrible. I don't know why deer eat them, but they're about as bitter as you could possibly imagine.
Did you get the white oaks, or were you chewing on red oak? Because it's a huge difference. Deer definitely like the whites. Were you chewing on reds?
Nick, I've chewed both acorns, and neither of them.
No, neither.
No, neither.
The
Neither are
only
good.
experience I've had with acorns is making those little whistles out of them. I can never figure that trick out, though.
That is a good
My
trick.
dad does it, and it's pretty cool.
Anyway, actually, I learned this acorn trick from my dad as well. But
Great
you're not
man.
going to be able
Several generations of acorn chewers in the Sobolewski family.
We just
We'll
lay
get
big
the OG
bucks down.
acorn chewer on the podcast here in the future for sure.
you're not going to be able to stomach these things. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to spit them out your window. And,
If you're in a blind.
Yeah, or spit them at the bottom of your ladder, because then that's going to get the smell of eating acorns out there, and some buck's going to smell it and say, "Hey, what's going on? Why is this other buck eating my acorns?" And he's going to come right in. And not 5 minutes after this video, out comes this. I mean, in Pennsylvania, he was a nice, respectable buck, probably a 16-inch wide 8-point.
Yeah, a nice 115-inch deer-ish,
When
somewhere
I heard
in
this
there.
story a couple years ago, it was a 4-point about 12 inches
See,
wide.
now you're just making stuff up.
I hear this story about once every couple months, and I bet by the end of this podcast we'll recap on it and it'll be
It's
a booner.
170. That's a
Yeah,
booner
Real
all
Boone
day.
and Crockett deer comes into the acorn chew.
But anyways, this buck, he hangs out about 60 yards. I couldn't quite convince him to come all the way in.
Once they're in, the acorn chewing does not close the gap. You gotta find another way to get them to close the gap.
Haven't
Maybe
found it yet.
a doe bleed or something. I don't know.
We did not get him.
We didn't figure it
commit.
out. He came out, he checked things out, and he went back into the woods without coming into bow range. So.
You ever thought about maybe eating an apple that might taste a little better instead of an acorn?
See, it's a totally different sound. You
I've
don't
done
get
that.
the same effect.
And let me tell you, my success rate with that trick is about 10%. My success rate with the acorn trick is about 95%.
How many times have you chewed acorns?
That detail's
Twice.
not important.
You can't break it out that often because
Then they'll get used to
you'll
it.
get used to it. It's
Pile on the trick.
They
it's
hear
like-
grunts and bleats all day long. They hear that crap and they're like, I'm not
Luke,
walking
it's
over
kind of
there."
like using the same lure too much. I mean, you're not much of a hunter, but for fishing, you can't just use the same lure over and over. It's the
Oh.
same deal.
Always. If you're not catching anything, it's definitely the lure. Change it up, and guaranteed you'll start getting on fish.
These are the facts.
This is a last resort trick that if you really want to get a deer and you've tried everything else,
Including your truck.
Not everyone does that.
grab your bag of acorns and start munching on them. And I tell you what, get your bow in your hand because
They'll
they're
be
gonna
putty in
coming.
your hand. That's no joke.
So when you do start chewing acorns, just make sure that you got that tip from the White Cat Outdoors crew, and give them credit because that's where it started.
If you hashtag chewing acorns on Instagram, we'll definitely post that crap.
Well, what's your guys' next hunting trip? You guys plan on going out west anywhere? Or?
A little west. Me and Frank are heading to Ohio, and actually Tom's just now talking possibly meeting up with us because we're probably going to be up northeast Ohio by the end, so he may hunt with us and then drive separate, and so he can head back.
See, I'm still a college student at Edinburgh University. I'm a criminal justice major. I got one semester left, and then I'm graduating. But their hunt,
So Tom just refuses to make time for hunting. He thinks school is more important for some ridiculous reason.
I wouldn't say it's more important. I definitely plan my school schedule around archery season, but their hunt ends January 13th, which is the same day I got to go back to school, and they got this thing where if you don't show up on the first day, they drop you from the class. So
It's kind of important to be there. But
I guess I
where
got to be there on the first day.
Where I was getting with this is, are you and Frank going to make sure that you bring a bag of acorns along with you so you have a successful hunt?
Oh, for sure.
You can't not bring a bag of acorn. Even if you don't use it, like we said, you can't break it out all the time. If the situation calls, then you better have your
It's
acorns
a
ready.
tree stand snack. I mean,
I'm going to have to explore some options because sometimes out on the water when the bite's slow, I don't really have any for sure killed tricks out there.
Try chewing some catfish bait.
I have a for sure trick
I mean,
that'll get them in there.
I try peeing in the water every once in a while, but I usually just end up getting a little on my jeans and on my boat, and it never really calls the fish in. So I need to find another trick.
I got the trick for you, Luke.
What do you got, T?
I'll take you back. Oh boy, I think I was probably 14 or 15 years old. We were bullhead fishing out at Edinburgh Lake. Slow night, not a lot of action.
It was a really slow night. I don't
And-
think we had caught a fish.
I decided now is a good time for my first pinch of chew. So I put I think it was Copenhagen straight. Put
Yes,
in a
it was
pinch,
because you got it from me.
and
What year was this, Tom?
He already said he was 15.
September 08.
but I sat down and I thought everything was hunky dory. Next thing I know, I stand up and the whole dock starts spinning, and I lean over and I puke right off the side of the
Metaphorically,
dock.
your mind was spinning, correct?
No, I
felt
think it
like
was
it.
the dock, actually.
Felt like the dock.
The fact that it was a
'cause I would-
floating dock didn't help either.
I was on that floating dock as well with my first pinch of chew, and I would say, yes, it was doing a bit of spinning.
And I tell you what, you throw up in that water and it chums them catfish right up.
It does. I seen him throwing up. I was like, Tommy, what are you doing over there? He doesn't pick his head up. He's still leaning over the dock, throws his thumb up and goes, just chumming, buddy. And wouldn't you know it, that chum brought them bullhead right in. We started just slamming them about 20 minutes after that.
Tom's been a Wymanheiser since day one.
So
Pulling tricks out of his sleeve.
White Cat Outdoors does have some unorthodox tactics, but they do work. It's proven. check our Instagram. It's just proven facts. We kill big bucks, we catch monster fish, and
all field
we're
tested.
leaking vital information here. So if that's you want to kill big bucks, you want to catch big fish, tune in. I'd prefer you get out a yellow notepad and a pencil, and I would start taking notes.
Don't even. I'd get a pen because you're not going to want to change any of this. Put it down permanent and
No need for an eraser here.
lock it up there, guys, because this is important stuff.
So yeah, that is basically a quick rundown of what we got going on over here. That's how we got started, where the name came from back in 2015.
We have since progressed from then.
Yes, we are a little bit better quality than we were back in 2015. We didn't really do a whole lot from 2015 until last year, basically.
Yeah, about probably the beginning of
From
2018.
2015, White Cat Outdoors was kind of just a thought. And
Yeah.
it was something we joked about, but within recent years, we've actually started to create a legit
actually
company
pursue
and-
something and actually try to get you guys some content out there so you can see what we have going on, some
'Cause
things that we
we're
do.
Good guys. We're funny guys, and
Some of us.
some of us, but we just need to get the love of the outdoors spread around a little bit more.
Yeah, basically we sat down and had a talk and realized that there was maybe a hole when it comes to the hunting and fishing industry. When you look at fishing, a big part of fishing is definitely the ocean, which is also one of Luke's big topics. And for hunting, it's all Midwest.
Well, even for freshwater fishing, it's a lot is focused down south.
Yeah,
You know,
and-
with bass fishermen.
Bass fishing tournaments.
Yeah,
and
so
everything.
That's
we're
the
up
biggest
here-
part of the fishing industry, pretty much, not as far as like selling lures and stuff, but for media, bass fishing is like the biggest thing, and that's all down south.
Yeah, so we're here based out of Pennsylvania, and we've got the most hunters per capita in any other state, and then we also hunt New York, which is also way up there.
Per
And-
capita. Do you know what that means, Nick?
Yeah,
Can you define per capita?
yeah, after the podcast.
We'll talk about that later.
But they know what I mean. But so
Don't want to bore you guys with all that.
And we have world class fishing up here, and we just saw that nobody's talking about it. So it's time that somebody brings it up and enjoys it with us. So
And PA is definitely, in my opinion, and I know you guys agree, a big time sleeper state in the last few years.
Yes, I coined that name.
I don't know if you coined it, but
You might have been the first one of us four to say it.
Nobody else is saying it though. We're saying things before they're being said.
Yeah.
This is a sleeper state.
for big bucks, because in the last few years, the antler restriction has really been bumping us
And
up big time in the size
You
of
still
bucks.
have them old timers that say it's a bunch of hogwash, but really
definitely-
You can't,
it's
and you can't
it's doing great things, honestly, in the state of Pennsylvania. The antler restriction has made the deer size and antlers a lot bigger.
I mean,
Yeah,
just
that's-
check the big
well,
buck
well
alerts.
said, Tom. But
no, he's
also,
yeah. Go ahead, Luke.
not just the hunting industry, but I'd say that it's a sleeper state for what?
You're
tried to-
coughing into the mic.
Oh,
I didn't want to say it, but now everybody knows because you already did it.
My bad. But I'd say it's a sleeper state for fishing in a lot of ways too. As Nick said earlier, world class fishing. I've caught. Sorry about that. I've caught 30+ inch walleyes and over 10-pound steelhead.
Yeah,
and
the walleye fishery in Lake Erie is just insane. Like the last few years, it's just been nuts. The
There's-
number of fish people are
been,
catching.
There's been days where we go out in the morning and we fish for probably an hour and a half and have 4 guys limits. But
Yeah.
my
Last
most-
summer, my grandpa brought 901 walleye into the cooler. And that's not counting the ones that were right at that 15-inch legal limit mark that they threw back in. He kept 901 walleye.
Yeah,
last summer.
that's just insane. And, you know, like the same thing coming out of Lake Erie, all the steelhead, everyone knows. I mean, that's a little bit more well known for this area is the steelhead fishing. You know.
we see guys from not just southern state Pittsburgh area, but we see
I've
all
run
over
into
the
people from
country
Australia.
and all over the world travel to fish right in Erie, Pennsylvania. And also the muskie fishery
No joke.
is very very decent in Pennsylvania. They don't quite have the quantities like you see in Lake of the Woods and
St.
St.
Clair,
Clair
yeah.
and everything, but for
Do you even know much about muskie fishing? I mean, or do you
Um,
even know to talk on this?
I
don't
would
think he's
say
ever
that,
caught a muskie.
I'm in the Husky Muskie Club with a 52-incher.
What is the Husky Muskie Club?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, Nick, because I'm the only one in this room here that can proudly say that.
Yeah.
It's catching a muskie that is over 50 inches long, and I will not spill the beans on where that muskie was caught, but it was in northwest Pennsylvania.
Don't worry, I'll tell everybody where it is.
Just to add about muskie, Frank here also has, out of Edinburgh Lake, like you mentioned before, has the largest muskie ever landed on rod and reel hanging in his house.
Yeah, I did not catch it, obviously.
Of course you didn't.
Because I'm not in the
know.
Husky Muskie Club, as you very diligently pointed out. But I do have the mount. The fish was caught in 1912, so
Not a replica, the actual fish.
yeah, actual fish. So that's pretty sweet little little trophy that I have in my house to.
Piece of history there.
You said 1912,
Yeah.
and it's still the biggest.
Yep.
Still,
So-
the biggest caught out of Edinburgh
So,
Lake.
if my math is right, that's over 100 years.
You could say that.
106,
Seven.
Wasn't
We have no
wasn't that
math majors
mount-
in the room.
Wasn't that mount found in a dumpster?
Yeah, my dad's buddy, Brad Barron, actually, Brad's dad, found it in a dumpster. Whoever had it before, the guy that originally caught the fish, when he died, his family just threw it out. They didn't want the fish anymore. So he found it in a dumpster and took it to a taxidermist and had it kind of restored a little bit. So part of the fish is a little bit replicated because it was all rotten from
It's
being
100
in it.
years old.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
107, actually.
Get it
we
right,
have to-
moron.
You have to pull the phone out for that one, Nick?
No,
That's why it took him so long to get the right number.
You forgot the password.
it's Face ID now.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we're getting into is technology with the hunting and fishing industry. Talking about Face ID, just with new bows and sights and everything coming out. I got some new reels that are coming in the mail and just a bunch of awesome content that we'll show on the YouTube channel. But
Speaking of technology and hard water fishing, I tell you what, Markham underwater cameras, they are a game changer.
Yeah, so that's another thing we'll definitely be covering here in the podcast is we're going to go over a lot of new content or new gear that's on the market.
Yeah.
We definitely want to be your guys' main source. If you're thinking about getting a new bow, maybe any new fishing equipment, new hunting equipment, trapping, we want to be your guys' main stream to see what it's like. We'll give you honest opinions, exactly what we're working with and if we like it and if
test
we'll
it
be
out
using it.
firsthand.
Yeah.
So that's stuff you'll be able to find on our YouTube page. Luke's going to be running the YouTube page for the
Speaking
most
of
part.
technology, if you get a lot of crashing and banging and coughing into my mic and the audio's not very good, that's because I'm new to this technology. I'm not really tech
As am I.
savvy in this. In
So
this
there's not really
department.
any experts sitting at this table with this. It took us an hour and a half to set up our equipment.
And
for
Luke
the
still
first one.
hasn't figured out that if you sit still, you won't hit the mic. If you're jumping around, taking care of the fire, and
I got what the
just
doctors
plain
like to
hee-haw.
call ADHD, so I tend to fidget and jump around a little bit. That's why fishing's good for me, because if I not catch anything, I move, I walk, I cast, but hunting, I get a little fidgety, and the deer tend to stay away from me because they can kind of point out where I am.
oh man.
Yeah, so I don't know what we want to get into after that. Basically, we've covered who we are, what we've been doing. Does anybody want to lead into what our plans are, I guess? I know we talked about some reviews
Well,
and whatnot.
What we're about to do is we can talk just a little bit about the weather up here. It's starting to cool down.
Yeah, we're about to get
Yeah,
into
what we're
hard
getting into,
water.
yeah.
In a couple of weeks, we definitely plan on releasing a hard water podcast talking about some of our tactics that we go about, some of the places. Not too specific on the places, but
I'll try and get in on that podcast because you probably want to hear some content from the expert over here. I don't know how much good intel the other guys
yeah,
can give.
we
you on
have
hard water
nothing to
fishing.
offer.
Yeah, Luke, why don't you get into a little bit about your tactics for ice fishing and what your plans are for once the water gets hard?
Once the water
So
gets hard,
hard.
you always love it getting hard, and that's my can't say that with a straight face, but that's my wouldn't say favorite time of year for fishing, but it's definitely up there. this point right now, it's kind of tough. The water's half frozen, not hard enough to get out on, so I'm starting to get the itch. I can't really get out there and catch fish yet because can't get the boat in the water. The shorelines are frozen, so the steelhead run hasn't been very good this year. Go ahead, Tom.
And the streams are starting to freeze up, and that makes it a pain for fly fishing or spin casting.
Yeah,
in
it's-
the creeks.
Yeah, I sometimes like to float on the icebergs going down the stream.
That's usually the
fun.
safest thing
Yeah,
to do.
I wouldn't recommend that. That's for professionals
Seasoned pros.
only. But I got all my gear out. They say you can't have too much fishing gear, but I'm starting to not know if that's true or not. Cause
You just don't have enough room to put it.
That's
That's where the problem comes in. It's not
Yes.
the amount of stuff; it's the amount of room that you have to put it.
Yeah, because
As Rut Daniels would say, some people tell him that you only bring the essentials, and he says you can only use what you got, so you bring it all.
and that's
A lot of truth behind
that's
that
very
statement
true,
right
yeah.
there.
He's
That's why he catches deer
knowledgeable
like
man.
it's his job.
It's true.
Catches deer.
That's his company, Catching Deers.
I love it. Never heard that. I'm gonna go hunt some fish now. But anyways, I don't have a lot of free time because as Tom mentioned before, he's a college student. I'm also a working college student. So
I also work.
Tom
I
doesn't
don't know if
actually work. Don't let
Luke
him
was
fool
trying
you.
to just rub that in my face, but I'm a student foreman on the maintenance crew here at Edinburgh. So it's a pretty big deal. That minimum wage is pretty sweet, 15 hours a week.
who made that student foreman position?
That's self-nominated.
So is
and
that
voted.
is that an official title?
I can't put it on a resume, but
But it's there in heart.
my supervisor does refer to me as the student foreman, so
Very nice.
that is there.
But anyways, back to the hard water fishing. I'm very busy, so a lot of my fishing is just kind of sprung upon, and I don't really plan it out. So I tend to do a lot of fishing by myself. If you are ice fishing, though, make sure that you're either going out with somebody or that ice you're on is safe, because not just the thickness of the ice, it's slippery, ice can shift, you can walk out on the ice, and when you go to walk back, the shoreline's 10 feet away. So
Could step in somebody else's ice hole.
That's always a
You
problem.
got to keep out of other people's ice holes.
Nick really likes to get into other people's ice. So I don't think I've gone fishing on the hard water one time with Nick where he hasn't found a hole to stick his boot through, and I don't know how. If you look at an ice hole, your boot is way bigger than the hole.
Ice holes are pretty small.
But sometimes
Depends on who's making the ice hole. Everyone's ice hole is a little bit different.
Yeah,
Can
you
we
make
stop-
you make your
I
ice
think
hole the way
I
you
think
want
we
it.
should stop talking about ice holes here. Anyway, actually, you know what? That's a good kicker to this joke I got. So my old man, he once told me a trick on polar. We're hunters and fishermen. And he was telling me a trick about polar bear hunting. And if you ever want to catch a polar bear, what you're gonna do is you're gonna dig a hole.
This is somewhere you're going to want to pull out your notepad.
Yes, and as Tom mentioned, grab a pen because you're not going to want to forget this one.
No
You're going to want
changes.
to cut a big hole in the ice, all right? And you're going to take a can of peas. You're going to line that hole that you cut with some peas. And when a polar bear walks up to take a pee, you kick him in the ice hole. And my dad told me that joke when I was just a little guy and didn't really know what it meant, but I sure love telling that joke, and it just makes a funny story now that I'm 20 and can actually understand it.
I'm glad you laid that on all of our listeners. I'm sure everyone is appreciative.
That is
of that.
a
That joke is
classic
going to be
joke.
heard worldwide. White Cat Outdoors. But anyways, so just be careful when you're out on the ice.
At the very
But-
least, somebody that doesn't ice fish, let them know where you're going to go. I understand you don't want
Yes.
to tell other ice fishers exactly where you're going, but if you are going to fish by yourself, make sure somebody knows where you're at.
Yep. That also another kind of rule of thumb: fishing known areas. Don't be the only guy out there. If there's other people out there, still make sure that that's not a sure-all that the ice is safe, but it's definitely makes you feel a little more comfortable being out there with other guys.
That reminds me of, was it 2 years ago when we went to Canadota?
Yeah, it was Nick's 21st birthday.
Yeah, that's what,
oh
yeah.
boy, yes.
We show up to this lake and we weren't sure if the ice was safe yet. We were waiting. Me and Nick got out there first, and we were gonna let everyone else know to come out. We were just gonna fish all day for Nick's birthday, And so we get out to Canadota, and we're waiting to call the other guys to tell them if it's safe or not. And we get out there, and as soon as we pull down to the boat launch there where we walk out onto the water, there's a guy out there in the water. His hut and all of his gear is in this hole. It didn't sink, but
For people that don't ice fish, you're not supposed to be in the water. You're supposed to stay up on the ice.
Yes. So I'm sorry. I didn't tell
Nick.
everyone. So now that you guys all know that, now that you got pause. Just hit pause, Nick. We're just gonna edit this chunk out.
No, this is a live podcast. I was just making sure somebody wasn't pulling in. We're recording out of the barn here, and I just thought we heard somebody coming in. We don't want any interruptions. But yeah, Frank was checking the ice. We had just got there, me and him, and you can take
Him
it
and
back
I.
from there. Go ahead.
So yeah, we see this guy.
So there it was.
So there I was. So you can see the guy. He's standing right there.
Oh, get this.
So this guy's in the water, and me and Nick, obviously we want to help the guy. So we start slowly trying to make our way to the guy, and then he gets up out of the water, and he's up on top of the ice, and he comes into...
We used a rope to get him. He didn't get himself out. Remember?
No,
we
the
talked?
first time he got out was by himself.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you-
Spoiler
did you say
alert.
the
He didn't
first
go in
time?
only
Just
once.
see, we're telling a story here, Luke.
Spoiler alert. He didn't. He went back in.
So he comes out, and he's standing there, and we're like, well, what do you want to do here? Because all of his gear, he had a Markham underwater camera,
Great tool.
Gas-powered auger.
gas-powered
And a really
auger,
nice
heaters,
great tool.
all of his rods.
I
His,
prefer the Vexlars myself. Side note, Tom.
I'm a more of a Vexilar guy. My favorite thing is the Panoptics. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, Frank, we'll go.
That's gonna
perch
be a
for
whole
perch
nother
this year,
podcast,
and,
I think.
You bring your whatever you want to call it. I'll bring my Markham, and we'll see.
we'll talk
see who
about
comes out on top.
Okay, so we're talking to the guy, about what he wants to do with, about getting his stuff back, and he's like, well, let's go see what we can do about this. So he's like, you mind helping me? So me and Nick are holding on to, we put together some chains and strap.
It was a toe strap. It was 2 toe straps I had in my truck or my car, and we tied them together, and that was our safety line.
Yeah, so, and he was trying to get me.
Also, another safety note. If you do see someone that fell through and everything, you can do your best you can to help, but also remember that your life is valuable and don't put yourself in danger. There's professionals and techniques and everything to help others out, and you're not going to be any help if you get too close and break through also.
Yeah,
So,
This
then
guy
you just
has
have 2
never.
people.
I've never seen somebody so willing to put somebody else's life at risk.
Yeah, this guy was nuts. So he's trying to talk me into going into the water to get his stuff. I'm like,
is he standing on shore with you?
yeah,
No, we're
yeah. This was after he got out the first time.
Yeah,
He's trying to.
He wasn't fishing very far offshore, so we were basically on shore with a safety line going out.
Gotcha.
And so he's like trying to, before we even walk back out there, he's like, well, since you're the smallest, why don't you walk out there and see how close you can get to my stuff? I was like, no, I'm not going to get wet and fall in, and possibly drown to get your stuff back. I was like, I will
how I
do
wanted my birthday
everything
to
I
go.
can to help you that is not going to put myself in danger. He's like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. So me and Nick are holding this strap in case the guy falls in. And he starts inching his way out there, and he turns straight around to us and is just reefing on this thing,
See,
pulling
we were
us
maxed
out
on the
onto
safety
ice.
line, and he is about probably 20 feet from his hut still. And we're holding there, and he just starts yanking Frank out on the ice. And
Yeah,
it was,
and-
we checked with augers. There was probably a good 6-8 inches towards shore. It was basically right where you drop off is where the ice just got super thin. There's like a current or something coming through there.
Current, water depth, hot springs.
Yeah,
There's
vegetation. Yeah,
There's
and there's a lot of vegetation
tons
right
of
there.
stuff that can affect. So also just
He was almost on the brush
if
pile,
you're
actually, now
sitting
that I think
on
about it.
5-6 inches, always be careful. Keep checking the thickness, because 20 yards from you could be sitting on 2 inches. So
Mm-hmm.
just always be aware out there.
Yeah, so this guy's trying to yank me out. I just dropped the strap. I was like, dude, if you're going to try to pull me out there, I'm not helping you. Like, I'm not putting myself at risk. And finally, he's like, oh, okay, whatever, fine. And, we helped the guy as much as we could. He did end up getting his stuff back. And needless to say, we did not fish there that day.
Are you talking about a different time? Because I specifically remember that guy's hut and his auger going to the bottom of the lake.
No, he didn't.
Yes,
no,
he
he
did.
lost his auger. He didn't lose.
Yeah, he never got it out, though. He went home. Remember, his wife came and picked him up because he was literally like had icicles coming off him. Like,
Yeah, I could have swore he
No,
got
he-
his hut.
While we
I
were there,
remember his
nothing
auger
came out.
fell out.
yeah, the auger fell out, but yeah, no, he never got anything out of that
I
ice.
could have swore he got it. Well, I guess I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
But Yeah, so go ahead, Luke.
So that was a nice little story you guys.
Yeah,
had
nice
there.
little sidetrack.
I don't personally have any stories like that. I can't really find any wood around here to knock on, but I have never gone through the ice. Kind of a smaller guy, but I'm also very, very cautious when I go out there. It's not worth going out on sketchy ice to catch a couple fish. Just wait a couple more days or weeks, and that ice will be safe, and you can get out there. But I tend to fish light. I know a lot of guys like to pull their heavy ice huts and the seats and the foldovers, and I actually like to use either a pop-up or not even use a hut because I like to move around. As I said earlier, I got some ADHD in me, so
Like to do a little hole hopping.
yeah, I definitely
As
like.
Tom would say, turn that lake into Swiss cheese.
Yes, that is
Swiss
what I
cheese
do.
the ice.
I drill holes and just keep hopping around. So my main targets are perch and crappie. I do actually want to try and catch a muskie this year through the ice. I've never
Frank, you
done
know
that.
anything
I
about
could probably
that?
tell you how to do that.
Catch a muskie through the ice?
Yep.
How big was that muskie, Tom?
Well, I've caught a northern pike through the ice.
A little bit different, Tom.
So
If you can catch a northern pike, you can catch anything, they say.
yeah, because they say that northern pike are one of the
The
hardest-
least aggressive fish
They
out
actually
there.
don't say that. Northern pike are, if you find them, they're about as easy to catch as a largemouth bass. They're hit anything that's shiny and moving. So, anyways, I would like to hear your tips later, Tom, on how to catch muskie through the ice. But I know a couple spots where muskie like to lurk around. I've seen them on camera. I've definitely seen them on
I guess you could say
sonars.
they could lounge around in that area.
Solid pun, Nick.
That was
Thank you for that. That was good.
Haven't laughed like that since I was a little girl.
Frank was a little girl.
kind of speechless. I don't know what to say about that. But
We're just gonna have to pretend it never happened and move on.
Yeah, the lounge is lurking underneath the ice, and you found a place. You said you were going to give the exact location of where you were fishing for this?
I don't
The
believe
coordinates, please.
That's exactly what I said. I think you're skewing my words here a little bit, but I've had takes that it's either been pike or muskie, but I've never surfaced one. But another thing, I'm very conscientious about muskie fishing. I donate to some foundations that help support muskie. They're, in my opinion, one of the coolest freshwater fish out there. And in past years, their numbers have really gone down. But the efforts through these foundations have.
What are some of those foundations that you donate to?
So he doesn't know them offhand. We'll put them in the show notes, just so everybody knows. Because if you're passionate about fishing, it's really good to donate to that kind of stuff. It's same as like the antler restrictions and CWD for whitetail. It helps to donate to those foundations because they really do a lot for. I just said do. I'm a child.
That's always funny. I don't care how old you are. That is always funny.
But yeah, so if you can, please donate to those kind of foundations. Like I said, we can put some of them in the show notes.
Even if you don't donate to them, just be conscious about what you're doing. Like you said with CWD, like with transporting deer and stuff, and just paying attention to that. Or like with muskie
and with
fishing,
muskie,
just be an ethical
And
muskie
catch
fisherman.
and release on the large ones too.
I'm an avid muskie fisherman, and I know you got to keep them in the water. They're big fish. They fight. They tire themselves out trying to get off. So
You really got to take care of them once
yep,
you have a hold
You can't
of
beat
them.
them up. I know they're scary fish. You got to watch out for their teeth and everything, but don't be picking the muskie up and dropping it on rocks and everything. You're going to knock it out, and it's just those big muskie that you catch. Those are the breeders which produce the little ones for us to.
About
catch
how
in
old are
futures.
they when they get to that 50-inch mark?
About 4,000 years old-ish.
Okay, so like accurately.
Accurately, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure muskie are one of the older fish, and they can live over like 30, 40 years. So that muskie that I caught's probably been swimming around for about 30 years.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but we can check.
Don't write that one down with pen.
Yeah, that's
Break
what
out your pencil.
That's what the pencil's for.
Oh, God.
But so just be conscious, and even if you're not a huge fan of muskie, or if they irritate you by taking gear or whatever, just be conscious that they're in the water for a reason. Population control. Every fish out there's got a purpose. So just don't neglect them just because you don't like them. But that's just my take on it, because I'm very passionate about the muskie fishing.
Yeah, for sure.
While we're still on the ice fishing, you want to go into a little bit about the Canada and ice fishing up there, kind of our experience with that?
So we took a trip last year and hope to take another one this year up to Canada, and we had everything planned out. We were gonna hit a smaller lake and try and catch some walleye, and the weekend that we planned on going up, we got a
Pretty good warm up.
yeah, it got a heat spike, and
It's like a
decided-
quick thank you to the Blue Ice Report. They kept us up to date while we were out of town. If you're looking to fish up in Canada, look up the Blue Ice Report. There's a group of guys that give an ice report once a week, what they're doing. So we were able to follow along up until that point.
Yeah, and called some local bait stores around, and they said that ice varied because of the heat wave. Ice doesn't melt uniformly. There can be spots that still have 6-8 inches, and
Get closer to your mic, please.
sorry, technology. Remember, sorry, bear with me.
A little slow.
But the ice doesn't melt in uniform, so even though you walk out, like I said earlier, you could be sitting on 6 inches, and 20 yards from you there could only be 3. So we called, and it wasn't worth the drive for us to go get up there and fish on some sketchy ice or figure out that we can't fish. So we took a little detour, and what was that lake called that we did end up fishing?
We ended up fishing Lake Couchiching the first day, and then we fished Simcoe the second day. And Couchiching is just like the very tip of Simcoe. There's
Just the very tip.
just the very tip.
Not
You
the whole
understand?
thing.
Couchiching goes into Simcoe, and Simcoe's huge. I mean, Couchiching.
Big lake trout. You can actually rent cabins way out there. You can
Yeah.
like stay out on the ice for a weekend with like cabins and wood stoves and stuff. Which actually we looked into possibly doing that, because that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
That'd
sweet.
be a cool little vlog for the YouTube. But anyways, we didn't really know
See
what
if
to
Steve
expect.
YouTube would allow it.
None of us really had experience fishing those waters. We didn't do a whole lot of research. It was kind of a quick planning, and like I said, we had to change course after we heard that our first location wasn't able to be fished.
Well, and actually,
So-
it's a good thing we didn't.
I forgot.
It's a good thing we didn't go there, because I know a couple of us weren't like totally confident that we couldn't fish there. They were like, we probably could fish. And while we were up at Couchiching, found out that there was a black, I think it was like an F-150 that actually went through the ice right where we were supposed to be going in. Someone tried driving out. So
Yeah.
we went from it's not even safe to walk on to some guy trying to take a pickup truck out there, and he went right through, which can get very expensive. We found out. I talked to one of the
Yeah.
locals, and it's like several $100s a day that it stays in the water.
That you get fined. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's because, obviously, like, you're oil and gas and you're just dumping it into the lake. So, yeah, it gets really expensive. So it was a really good idea that we moved. And where we were at had a ton of ice.
Oh yeah. We had over 2 feet of ice.
Not only was there a ton of ice, but there was a ton of fish too.
I'll get into
That-
that.
that is a fact.
Actually, I was nervous that the ice auger that I brought wasn't even going to cut through the ice, because there's probably a 3-inch auger or a 3-foot auger on.
I think you have a 30-inch
small
flight.
ice hole.
Yeah. So 30-inch. So we were going down, and we were probably sitting on about 26 inches of ice. So there were trucks driving past us and snowmobiles and side-by-sides. And if you check out our Instagram at White Cat Outdoors, there's pictures of it, and Tom has the official beer sitting in a little homemade cooler out on the ice. But
Genesee, baby.
so good old Jenny beer. Like I said, we weren't really too familiar with the area, so we were kind of just going for it, and talked to some locals and figured out where some fish were. And actually, since I was kind of the most experienced fisher on the trip, they kind of told me, like, well, where do you think looks good? And I'm kind of looking at the lake, and I just see a lot of white. You can't really tell any vegetation, so I kind of went off some buoys and some markers they had, and some peninsulas that came out, and drilled a couple holes, and immediately just started hammering perch. and we had how many guys out there? 6.
Yeah, I think there were 6 of us out
Six
there.
of us out there fishing, and honestly, we probably caught over 500 fish that weekend. We kept about 5.
We were probably right around a dozen.
That we kept.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small perch.
So we hammered about the 4 or 5 inch perch.
Which those ones taste better anyway. The fillets are the perfect size for a sandwich. You don't have to cut them up. I mean, honestly, it's probably best.
Just
that
throw
way.
the whole fish right on
yeah,
there.
some people do, but
Some say we're better.
Most don't.
We threw back about 95%. That's a lot of math. Threw about 95%.
Not a math major.
Of our fish back, and like Tom said, we kept about a dozen. So everybody got a little taste of Canadian perch. But
Pretty much everybody got one perch sandwich
yeah,
out of the whole weekend deal.
It was worth it.
it was worth it. It was cold too. It was probably about 7 degrees while we were out there. So make sure you bring your little heater in the hut because you get cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we definitely plan on getting back up to Canada again this year, and that'll be another podcast topic that we run through here in whenever we do it, probably a few weeks or a month or so, whenever we end up getting up there. And so what do you say we move on from ice fishing and talk a little bit about what we got coming up here? Not really with Ohio. We kind of talked about Ohio, but we got muzzleloader season coming up in a couple days here. So
Yeah, 2 days. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it already started by the time you guys hear this. But,
yeah, that's true.
We're recording this actually Christmas Eve. Got to do it for the grind. Get this out for you guys. So
Working on Christmas Eve for you people.
yeah, it's a 7 days a
People.
week.
What do you mean, you people,
I
Frank?
don't mean you people.
You people. But yeah, why don't you just give a little rundown as what we're Tom? You've been quiet a little while. Give us a little rundown about getting into muzzleloader season here, and
I got my old Thompson Center 50 cal flintlock shooting lead balls. It's
Lay 'em down at 1,000 yards, will you?
Yeah, no,
from the hip.
I'm pretty good up to about 50 yards. Believe it or not, those round balls aren't extremely aerodynamic.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, I'm comfortable out to 50 yards. And my dad just purchased this new farm, actually where we're doing our podcast now. And I ran a dozen coyote traps out there a couple days ago. And you couldn't take 10 steps without crossing a set of deer tracks. They were everywhere.
Speaking of coyote traps, Tom, when you checked them, how many coyotes did you get?
Well, we
He
haven't
hasn't
checked
checked
them this
them
I
yet.
morning.
haven't checked them this morning. That's
Yeah.
after the
This
podcast.
is actually an early morning podcast where, I mean, we got here.
We didn't
By-
even get
by
to have
7.
any beers for this.
Yeah. So, yeah, we didn't exactly. But
But to answer your question, on the 2 previous days, they have been empty. But let me tell you a little something about coyote trapping real quick. They are one of the most smart, elusive critters out there that you can trap, along with foxes. And foxen, I'm not quite sure the plural.
It would be fox.
Fox eye?
No, it's
yeah,
fox.
I think Luke's got it. Fox eye.
Foxy.
Foxy.
Fox in.
Anyway, fox and coyote are extremely difficult to trap. And I've actually, on a couple of my sets, I've had dog tracks coming up, 5-6 feet away from my set, just checking it out. But anyone will tell you, when you set fox or coyote traps, the biggest thing is patience. So you can have a trap out there for 2 or 3 weeks before a fox or a coyote will finally feel comfortable enough to really go investigate it and hopefully put their foot on your pan. Anyway, enough of that. Back to the muzzleloader hunting. So I'm really excited to hunt here because the amount of deer tracks is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
So you're saying that this muzzleloader season will 100% produce some deer for you?
This muzzleloader season...
It'll produce opportunities.
Yes.
Definitely produce the opportunity.
If I don't at least see a deer out there,
He'll eat his hat.
You heard it here, folks. He will eat his hat if
And,
he does not kill a deer in muzzleloader.
I didn't...
I'll make sure that I get that on video and post it to our YouTube channel.
You can't back out now. It's
I
what the
didn't
viewers
agree to-
want.
Tom said he'd eat his hat.
I didn't say that. But,
I'm sure that you guys had that written down in pen somewhere.
well, hopefully it was in pencil so you can erase it.
You told him to get rid of the pencil.
Anyway, I'm super excited to hunt here. There's a lot of deer sign, a lot of hopefully bucks that made it through
Keep going.
the Orange Brigade of the Pennsylvania rifle season. So
Honestly, talking about that, I think a lot of big bucks were killed this year, but I didn't talk to a ton of people that were killing deer. I think the kill was down in our area anyway, but the quality of deer was definitely a lot higher. So there
Which-
should still be plenty of deer running around up here.
I think that has a lot to do with the antler restriction as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, when I first started hunting, when I'm 22, 12 years ago, when I was 10 when I first started,
Yeah, with the mentor program.
you
we
never
got
heard
in
of,
Pennsylvania.
in Pennsylvania anyway, people shooting 140-inch deer. Mm-hmm. Now,
It was talk of the county if you heard of 140
Even a
inch
few
deer
years
in
ago
town.
when I shot my Pope and Young buck, like everyone knew about that buck that I killed. Like it
Yeah.
was a big subject.
My buddy that lives about half an hour away came up and showed me a picture of this buck and was like, "Dude, you see this buck that was shot in Northwest PA?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my foot in the background there. That's my cousin's picture." So that was pretty funny.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah,
didn't
that
even
just
know
gives you an
that.
idea of how far
just in
a
the
buck like that
past
ranged.
10 years. Now, every year, several people I personally know are shooting 140-inch.
Just this
Are
year,
you-
I had my hands on 3 deer over 150
You
that
personally
people I
know?
know killed.
Have you personally got any of these deer, Tom?
Personally, no. I have not gotten 140.
Tom's not one to brag about himself. He just likes to talk about others.
Yeah.
And it's a
It's
good
very
quality.
noble thing of you to do, Tom. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just do a real quick recap about what we got going on with White Cat. I want to thank everybody for tuning in on our first podcast and
Maybe
joining
we should
us.
tell them what to look forward to, what we got coming for them.
Yeah, that's what I was getting into here.
Why don't you just stop
Thanks
interrupting?
for rudely
Can I finish
interrupting.
one damn story?
One story, please.
Please, Nick, tell the listeners what we got coming for them.
Nick, what
Yeah,
do we got
so-
coming for us?
Nick,
Yeah.
could you just tell us?
Yeah, we're going to get into it.
Why don't you go
so
ahead?
what we got going for you, like I said, I was in the middle of thanking you guys for listening in, joining us on this little journey. The idea with White Cat Outdoors now, we've legitimized the business or are in the process of that. And we're going to be releasing weekly podcasts. Every week we're going to be covering a different topic that corresponds with the season that we're podcasting in. So it's going to be, we're not going to be talking about turkey hunting during bow season. We're going to be talking about deer hunting while we're deer hunting, trapping while we're trapping, hard water while we're fishing the ice, and Luke's going to be covering fishing throughout the entire time because that's what we want to do.
And to go along with that, I'm starting up the YouTube channel. I'm still acquiring some gear for some high quality footage and audio for you guys because I want the experience to be as close to the live experience as it can possibly be to give you guys that feel that you're there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like I said, we're still working out some kinks. There's a few bumps in the road. Obviously, our first podcast isn't going to be the best one we've ever made, but I hope
It's the best one so far.
Best one,
in
so
my
far.
opinion.
So I think we've made 2. So I hope you guys bear with us and stick out with us so that you can watch us grow and watch our content improve and watch away for future giveaways and just different opportunities that the White Cat team has to offer.
Maybe gain a little bit of knowledge from it. Who knows?
I think
You'll
they've-
definitely
I think
gain the
they've- I
knowledge.
think they've gained a lot of knowledge already through this first podcast.
I mean, how could you discount the acorn trick? I mean, that's already, we're giving them solid gold day one. You can't just not talk about that.
Yeah, but we've been talking here for about an hour now. We got some coyote trapping to do. That's what's going to keep us busy. So why don't you guys all make sure you join us and make sure you guys are getting outside.